We are back, and as we promised, we have special guests here in the studio. I'm joined by Tracy Kedar and Vana Thiero, and we're here to talk about the young man Ido Kedar, who happens to be Tracy's son, and we're going to be hearing from his new book, In Two Worlds, which is a novel. Is this the first novel written by somebody with autism?
With non-speaking autism?
With non-speaking autism,
as far as we know.
Okay.
That's what we think, and if there are others, I don't know of them, but there would be very few.
Now, Tracy, you work in the field.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker, mental health professional, and I have been doing parenting and children's mental health for all of my career. And in the last few years, I've started teaching non-speaking autistic children how to communicate by touching letters and moving towards keyboards and iPads.
Okay.
And Vana, you're here because this book, the first book, Ido and Autism Land, really had an impact on you, so much so as a mom that you've really been following their story, and you've got an event that's coming up this Saturday. Tell us about it.
Yes, because I met Tracy several years ago at an Autism Society of LA conference where Ido was the keynote speaker.
And we should also interject that you're the mom of two boys with autism.
Yes.
And a nonverbal
Yes,
son.
so interjected.
Right.
I am the
Yes.
mom of two boys on the spectrum,
Right,
one
on the spectrum.
nonverbal. And so when a nonverbal young man was presenting at an autism conference, I was blown away, and I met Tracy afterwards and saw Ido run away and steal somebody's soda, and Tracy run after him, and I was like, that's me, that's my son. And so I loved them ever since, and I told my son about Ido, and he just lit up. I said, there's a young man who spoke today. He didn't speak, but he was able to tell us what he thought. So when the book came out, I read it to Bakari, and so Tracy kept us on her mailing list. And when In Two Worlds came out, I saw in the small print, she said, and if you'd like to have an event, and I'm like, did I read that right? I've got to have an event. And so my birthday is this Saturday, and I figured what better way to spend my birthday than to celebrate an awesome warrior mom and her revolutionary son and his work. And I've read the book, and you guys get that book now if you know anything about autism. Yeah. Okay, so Anthony is the main character, and he's stuck in his world, and he's going through all the stuff all of our kids went through, and the mom is going through all the stuff we went through, going to experts, and the experts saying things, and the instincts of the mom not really matching what the experts are saying, and then the dialogue in this nonverbal, this non-speaking kid's head is just liberating.
Right.
It lets us know that they were there all the time. So anyway, the journey continues. He finds a way to communicate the same way that Tracy's teaching young men and women today, and eventually he fights for his education, very similar to what Ido went through. But Ido says this character is not him. He's just drawn from his life, as all good authors do. And he represents the culture of the non-speaking people and the autism culture, and it's a wonderful journey. I don't want to give much away, but my son, who's here in the studio, he read it. And having a non-speaking brother, he and it's opened up dialogue for us to talk about his brother. So you guys got to get this book. And
Okay, but this Saturday is a perfect opportunity to get the book. Tell us about the event, where it is, what time.
The Legacy Center, started by 4 moms who have non-speaking children, created this wonderful place to educate and provide resources and events and education for people who are non-speaking and those who speak, developing them cognitively. They are hosting this event with us, and we are celebrating Ido. We're having other non-speaking young men and women share their inspiration that Ido, as a trailblazer, led for them. And it's going to be great. And you guys should come. It's on Variel, 6011 Variel in the Warner Center.
Okay.
Right around the corner.
At what time again?
At 4 p.m.
Not in the Warners. It's in Chatsworth.
Oh, no. It's located in the Warner Center. It's right around the corner.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we got that straightened
know,
out
so
so
you
that
guys-
you'll know
I'd
where to
have gone
go.
to the wrong
go.
place.
That's a very cool thing. Now, Tracy, Ido couldn't be with us here today,
No.
but we want his voice to be heard.
Yes.
And we had the opportunity to send you questions, which he responded to in the
Yes.
way that he would have responded had he been here
Yes.
from his iPad. Would you like me to
Absolutely.
read a couple of the questions?
yes.
So let's start with one of the questions we had for him was, before you were able to communicate, what memories do you have, and what was the most frustrating thing?
Hang on one
And
second.
I've thrown this at her. It takes a
Okay.
second to set up, which are the realities of
Ready.
using an iPad. Okay, so
Okay.
go ahead.
Let's make sure we got the volume right.
Before I could communicate, I remember getting lots of ABA and other therapy.
ABA.
It consumed my whole life. The most frustrating part was that it worked on the wrong stuff, but I couldn't show it or tell anyone what I knew. I was so locked internally. I understood fluently, but I still got drilled on basic vocabulary and flashcard pictures because the specialists erroneously mistook a motor disability for a language processing one.
Okay, so that's very interesting that he was underestimated what he understood
Yes.
and could communicate.
His
Yes.
receptive language was there.
Yes.
His expressive was just different.
Yeah.
And it was more of a motor situation that
Right.
he had the words that he wanted to say, he just couldn't motor them out vocally. But they were there,
Yes.
which had to have been frustrating.
Terribly frustrating. Not just verbally, but gesturally and facial expressions, and the ability to control a pencil to write. So it really is kind of like a locked-in syndrome where you're moving,
Yeah.
right? And you're moving nonstop in a sense.
Wow, very frustrating. Our next question we had for him was, when you were learning to communicate, what was the moment when you realized that you could communicate? What was it like for you? What did you feel?
My mom realized it first. It was emotional and exciting, but no one else believed it, which was very frustrating. There are a lot of opinionated, close-minded professionals out there. But eventually my parents took me to Soma. I was 7 and I was one of her first students after she moved to the US from India. I got fluent enough to convert some of my bigger skeptics. Communication is a basic human need, and I believe her right. It has opened my world, allowing me to get a normal education and to become a writer.
And Tracy, why did they not believe that it was him communicating? What is the issue there that plagues this kind of communication?
Well, in the very beginning, it was because I actually had to hold his hand, because that's how I discovered it, by
Yeah.
him writing underneath my hand. And of course, everybody thought that the phrase was I was inadvertently,
Right.
Expressing my own thoughts because
So you were picking the words for him, they thought.
yeah, that's what
And not even being aware of it.
Yes.
Right.
That's what everybody thought. So this is why we had to try to find somebody who could teach him to do it on his own, moving his own arm. And Soma had just come to the U.S. at the time. In fact, we saw her in her apartment. She didn't have
Halo.
she didn't have anything, no. And she, even then, people who are taught one thing could not, they would look for reasons why it was not possible. They weren't looking at, the amazing accomplishment and what he was doing. They were looking at trying to find out or figure out some way, some message was being transmitted to him that he was picking up through telepathy or whatever it was, or her brushing his leg, or who knows, what things people were saying. And it just took a while, because it's a progression of skills. He got more and more and more fluent. And I think at this point it's pretty difficult to deny, because he sits on, iPad's on a table and he's alone and he's moving his own arm. But even then, if somebody's looking for something, they'll say, well, somebody's sitting 2 feet away from him. And they'll still,
Even though he's typing his own words on the iPad.
Correct.
And it took him a while to do it. He illustrates in Ido and Autism Land how he had to force himself and tell himself to shut off the autism side of his brain so he could really focus and make his hands do what he needed to. He would tell himself, do this, I've got to prove it. And he worked so hard on himself just to get that level of accomplishment.
Well, and what an extra layer of frustration when,
Right.
when you've accomplished something and people don't believe that you've done it. That's, I
Yes.
can't even imagine
And,
what that
and,
is.
and it's all dramatized in two worlds.
There we go.
And boy, is it dramatic.
And I want to hear more about this book. So I just want to ask one more question that we
Okay.
had on the iPad is what do you want people to know about your new book? And then we're going to have a reader come in and read from the book.
Absolutely.
In Two Worlds is my second book. My first book, Ido in Autism Land, was a memoir. In Two Worlds is a fictional novel telling the story of Anthony, a boy with autism who doesn't speak and lives in two worlds, his inner sensory world and his outer world of therapies. You meet his family, the professionals, the forces that keep him stuck, and you, the reader, know he is trapped. You move with him as he finally learns to communicate at the age of 16. The book tells his story, a family story, and the impact of so-called scientific treatments and how they affect lives.
Lives.
Because it is fiction, I can do things impossible in nonfiction. The reader enters Anthony's mind and heart. We are part of both his worlds.
Okay.
Truly
very,
wonderful.
Very interesting.
So we want to take a short break, and then we're going to bring in someone who's going to read from his book
Great.
because we want to make sure that we get to hear his
Right.
voice.